welcome everybody. Really glad to have you. My name is Billy Walsh. I'm the Artist Community Manager for Sofar Sounds, and we're excited for today's in session. We're focused entirely on learning more about the legal side of the music business and music law, entertainment law specifically. So I'm thrilled to be joined by our guest this afternoon, who I'd like to introduce. His name is Darrell Thompson. Darrell is the co-founder of a new music company called Deepr, and he'll explain more about that in a minute, but he brings business development, marketing, and strategy to Deepr's leadership. Began his career as an entertainment attorney in LA, working as director of business and legal affairs at Motown Records. And current and former clients that Darrell has worked with include Jay-Z, Black Eyed Peas, the Isley Brothers, and a host of music producers that have worked with everyone from Michael Jackson to Bruno Mars. So we're really thrilled to have you here, Darrell. And yeah, how's it going? What's going on in your life right now?
Thank you, Billy. I'm very honored to be a part of the Sofar Sounds seminar today, and just want to be able to answer as many questions, provide a good overview of some of the issues that affect independent artists out there, and just be a resource for you guys. So as Billy mentioned, I'm also the co-founder of a music app called Deepr, and Deepr is actually spelled D-E-E-P-R. I know that Billy and the Sofar Sounds team will be providing a link, but we really would encourage everyone today to download the app, use it, send us some feedback, and that's the only pitch that I'll make today for Deepr. Until we maybe get to the end, I might remind everyone. But just glad to join you, Billy. So ready to dive in when you are.
Right on. Yeah, and as Darrell said, we will be sending that out via email at the end, along with a short survey, just to get an idea from every attendee here how we're doing, where we can keep improving. But been checking out Deepr. It's like Shazam, but times a million. There's literally so many things that you can do to better understand who's behind the music that you're listening to, or submitting music that you yourself have created with a team. Giving those credits and accolades to everybody who had a hand in making that music is so important. And Deepr does a really great job of shedding light on the entire team that goes behind music, albums, and projects. So really excited to share that info at the end of the session. But for now, I'll just go over some housekeeping really quick. We've received a ton of great input, content, and questions from our attendees. So thanks in advance to everybody who submitted. We've actually taken a lot of that, and we'll be covering off on several topics related to music law today for the first 45 minutes. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So if you have your questions, feel free to submit them, not through the chat, but through the Q&A function that you see at the bottom of your screen. That way our moderators will be able to actually moderate the questions properly and make sure that we're getting to the ones that we might not have covered yet properly. So we won't miss anything that way. And just a few things to keep in mind, everybody. This is a supportive, uplifting space, so we want to make sure that we keep that in mind as we get into the discussion. Not that anybody here would do anything other than that. And please feel free to let us know, as you're chatting, showing support, what's interesting, what you're taking away from it. The chat box is the best way to interact during these sessions. And at the end, like I said, you'll receive a short survey just to tell us how we did. So we would love for you to fill that out if you have the time. Shouldn't take more than a minute. But without further ado, Darrell, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. We already talked a little bit about your background, entertainment attorney for many years. And I'm curious just where your path has led you to get to this point with Deepr. And can you share with us a little bit about what inspired you to pursue a career in entertainment law to begin with, and how your experience has helped guide you towards starting something like Deepr?
Yes, that's an excellent question. Thanks, Billy. So here's a bit of my background. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, which is the home of Motown. So I grew up listening to all of this great music as a young child, but I'll be the first to confess, I don't possess the talent to be like most of you guys in front of the microphone. I have a horrible singing voice, although I tried to sing in my church choir a little bit, but definitely no solo. So I always loved the arts and said, how can I be involved? I was a talkative kid in school, and it usually ended up getting sent to the principal's office or my counselor's office. And they said, Darrell, you like to talk. Have you thought about being an attorney? And the only attorneys that I was aware of were the ones I saw on television, representing all of these guilty people. And my conscience wouldn't allow me to do that. And then someone told me, well, you love the arts. Did you ever think about becoming an entertainment attorney and representing the people there? Because you're so passionate about arguing for people's causes. And when I found out I could actually represent artists and musicians and just people in the entertainment industry in general, I said, that's for me. And I was set on that path at I would say, early age, high school. So in college, I only wanted to go to law school to practice entertainment law. Thankfully, I did that, and I went to University of Michigan for undergrad in law school, moved out to Los Angeles, passed the bar my first time, and started my own practice. So that's the story behind how I decided to choose entertainment law.
Wow, I love that, how you know, consciously, the stereotypical definition of a lawyer is something that didn't vibe with your conscience, but being able to marry those two passions and advocate for people while still keeping an interest and an involvement in the arts was kind of the perfect fit for you, it seems.
That's exactly it. And I love your description, Billy, because that's what it is. As an entertainment attorney, I am your advocate. I actually only do transactional work. And what that means is I'm the one that would negotiate and draft the contracts or
Mm.
provide you the business advice when you're setting up your band, setting up your management company, whatever the business is, that's where the entertainment attorney comes in hand.
Nice. And how did that lead to Deepr? You know, now that you've kind of delved into this new realm, you know, maybe give us the quick high level story of how you came to find yourself creating a music app.
Absolutely. Well, I can't take the credit for the original idea. The original idea was founded by my business partner, Austin Webster, and he actually may join us in a few minutes, but he actually was listening to the radio one day and he heard a boy band come on the radio, and he had no idea who they were or anything about them. So when the announcer gave the information to the title of the song, he decided to go back in and do some research. He didn't know who wrote the song or produced it, but he found out it was actually by one of his favorite producers, a gentleman named Teddy Riley, who kind of fostered a sound here in the United States called New Jack Swing. Teddy, interestingly, has also produced Michael Jackson. He did Remember the Time record and was recently highlighted on the versus battle where Teddy Riley and Babyface actually did a versus battle, which was
Oh,
pretty
really?
popular. But that's the way Austin actually started the app, because he said there should be a way for me to find out the people who created the information behind the songs that I love. As great as Shazam is, and all of the streaming services are trying to begin to provide some credits, they still don't give a full picture. And that's exactly what Deepr does. It allows you to go behind the scenes and not only just see who's responsible for those songs, but we can help you create playlists and show you the full catalog of everything that's in our database of those creators and what they worked on.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's almost like you get those degrees of the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, if you will, where you get to understand who created this and what else they created. And, you know, that web begins to expand. And next thing you know, you're down a rabbit hole following your favorite producer through their entire career. And
And,
is
and it's
encompassed there.
great
That's awesome.
for, absolutely. And it's really good for all of the independent artists here, because oftentimes their credits are not presented in the major streaming services. So
Right.
if I'm a new young artist and I want people to know not only do I have all these great songs, but I actually worked on these other records, that's a new way for people to discover your music. So we encourage independent creators to download the app, and we have a function that allows them to actually upload their credits to Deepr. So
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll get into some of that specifics a little later on in the conversation. But you know, you had mentioned your passion for music and the arts and how you wanted to represent and advocate for these artists that are starting to really grow their career and build a team. And so I'll ask, you know, because Sofar works with a lot of musicians that are just starting to develop their careers and pursue music full time. When you think about what legal advice you would share with a musician that's just getting started, what would you tell them?
Here's the first thing. If at all possible, never ever sign a contract without having an experienced entertainment attorney at least review it. No matter how simple it may seem, even when the record label or the manager or the booking agency or the venue tells you, oh, this is standard, you have to make sure you get proper advice. It's true. Most of the time, there's going to be nothing nefarious or harmful in there. However, one simple word can change the complete tenor of a contract. And if you're not experienced enough to understand that, and I'll give you one example, in perpetuity. It's a big word, but it ultimately means forever. So if you were to sign a contract and there were rights where you're giving your rights away in perpetuity, that means you're giving away your rights to that particular work forever. So
Oh,
that's just
wow.
an example of how one word can truly change the entire tenor of a so-called standard contract, and why it's important to have an entertainment attorney as part of your team.
Nice. Yeah, now that just makes me want to go back to every terms of service I've clicked ignorantly and control F in perpetuity just to make sure. That's such a great example though, Daryl. I think there's these, and from the contracts I've read in my work and the things I've done or even helped write, it gets so into the legal jargon that common artists who really hasn't majored in any sort of line of work where this is their normal capacity to read through and understand and translate all of those, legalese words and terms, if you will. That's why it does seem so important to have somebody that has your back there, who's willing to go through it with a fine tooth comb and point out the moments of imperpetuity that you might want to avoid. So
Absolutely. And if I can just piggyback for a second, Billy, on that,
sure.
when we're talking about a new artist just kind of getting started in the business, the other thing I would recommend is really try to assemble a team together. The attorney, which I just mentioned, is an important part of the team, but it would be great if you have a manager. Oftentimes you can't, but if you can start off with a manager, even if it's just a friend who's going to help you navigate these waters. It's so easy now, thankfully, because of technology, for you to distribute your music all over the world. And as we can see with a number of people from various countries all over the world, you can make an impact via the internet with social media and many of the streaming services that allow you to go directly and post your music on. So the
Mhm.
other team member I would suggest is a manager or someone just to help you with your career. The other
Yeah.
team members you might want to consider is anyone who has experience with marketing and promoting. Ultimately, you're trying to get your name out there so that more people can discover and like your music. I'm sure many of you all are working on great projects, but it means nothing if no one knows about it. So that's another reason why we did create the Deepr, so that others can find and discover new music.
That's great how that all connects. And yeah, it leads me into another question, really, Daryl. And this comes around building a team. We actually hosted a music manager and the owner of a label, Juan Luis Carrera, a few months ago. And he mentioned, uh, off the cuff, that one of the first people that you should add to your team, and granted, he's worked with artists like Modest Mouse and Bright Eyes who have reached levels of their career to where they need that team or they will sink. But as an independent artist, looking from an independent artist point of view, as they're building their career, thinking about building out their team, when should a lawyer be considered as an additional member of that team? When does an independent artist know when they're ready to seek legal counsel?
That's an excellent question, and it's one there's not a standard answer, except I will absolutely tell you, if you can have a relationship with the entertainment attorney from the very beginning, they can help guide you, and oftentimes, if they're experienced, they can introduce you to the manager or the person to handle the marketing, the promotion of your project. At the bare minimum, you need an entertainment attorney on your team when you have any type of legal agreement that needs to be either drafted or reviewed and negotiated on your behalf. So even from the very beginning, I talked about having a manager on your team, you really should have a written management agreement. And don't be afraid to try and draft something up yourself. However, the important thing is that all of your relationships and your business dealings in the industry, we need to have them in writing, because that helps to avoid any issues down the line. Well, did I agree to pay you 10% or did I agree to pay you 20%? People's memories sometimes get foggy, especially when success comes in. And you say, oh no, I remember you told me you were going to give me 20%. Well, I remember the number was only 10%. If you have it in a written document and both of you agree to those terms and you sign it, that's the best policy. And if you need the services of someone to help you draft and create that document, that's when you would bring in an attorney. So anytime you have an agreement, maybe you're going to do some gigs at your local bar or nightclub. And I know obviously because of COVID, a lot of things have shut down. And that's one of the great things about Sofar Sounds. You're able to now do these live performances in your own home. It's still important, whoever you're doing any type of agreement with, to make sure you have an attorney on board just to review it or to help you with it. And oftentimes, many attorneys will work with you if you're a new or developing artist, because if they like what your sound is, the potential of you becoming a huge star later is always what they're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, the way that translates to me, coming from an artist perspective, is that it's all about feedback and consultation and finding people that you trust, that you can then share, you know, whether it's a contract or an idea, or, you know, maybe even a cover song that you want to create and play, and really understanding the legal precedents behind that and having somebody to consult and be in your corner and give you the feedback you need to make the right decisions seems to be the name of the game there for any artist.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. And I'm going to move on really quickly to focus a little bit more on music publishing and copyrights. You had mentioned a little bit about, you know, how things can get a little foggy without a lawyer. Sometimes you can't remember if you said 20 or 10%, and then you go back into the boardroom meeting, and all of a sudden you're getting less than you remember you signed up for, or something like that. And of course, those can be scary situations. But when thinking about typical contract arrangements with publishing organizations that all music professionals are dealing with, you know, what should artists, especially independent artists, be aware of? Specifically, are there distinct differences between like good and bad deals when discussing publishing contracts?
Absolutely. But you know what, Billy? I'm going to take a step back and let's talk about what music publishing is. All music
Great.
publishing is the way that you, as a songwriter, it doesn't make a difference if you are also an artist, if you're a musician, if you're a music producer, if you write and contribute to a song, and a song is usually made up of lyrics and music. So I know a lot of people sometimes say, well, the producer creates the music, the underlying track. If you're in a band, everybody's a musician, they're all contributing, and someone may write the lyrics. At the end of the day, a song is words and music that come together. And where I want to start you off is anyone who contributes to that is a songwriter. So you may have, again, other titles. You may be the actual artist that sings the song. You may be the producer that goes in and actually produces the record in the recording studio. That's all fine and good, but let's separate and break it down solely to you as a songwriter. Anytime you write a song and someone else uses your song, you're entitled to compensation. That's usually in the form of a license fee or royalties. The three major areas where your songs earn money are when you do a record deal and that record label, whether it's your own independent label or you sign to one of the multi conglomerates like a Universal or Warner or Sony, when they resell or stream your music, they have to pay you for your songs being written.
Right.
The second major source of income for a songwriter is the area of performing rights. And the largest performing rights source of income is actually your local radio stations. When your local radio stations play music, that's compensation which they collect on your behalf. and they have to pay to you, the songwriter. Now I say collect on your behalf. That's actually when you sign up with one of the PROs or performing rights organizations. In America, that's ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. In Canada, it's SOCAN. In other territories, I think in the UK, it's PRS. And each territory has their own way of collecting those royalties and distributing it back to the songwriters. And then I mentioned a third way. The third way is actually synchronization licenses. And that's when your songs that you write are synchronized to any moving images. That's either a television show, a motion picture, a TV commercial, even a music video, which oftentimes is used for promotional purposes. However, with the advent of YouTube and Vivo and a number of other online streaming services, now when you play that video, those big companies like Google, who owns YouTube, they actually sell advertising, they're able to monetize, and you as a songwriter are entitled to collect all that. So all of that is ultimately the money and revenues generated is what we call publishing. So Billy, your question was, are there good deals and bad deals? There are a lot of companies that want to collect those funds for you, and mostly they're called publishing companies. When you immediately create a song, you are actually your own publisher, and it's your responsibility to go and collect those monies. Most of independent artists have no idea where to start, and that's when they try to find a company that's in business, a music publishing company, to handle that part of the business, in return, usually, for some percentage of the song that you wrote. So under a traditional co-publishing deal, you may give up 25% of all of the income that comes in to this company so that they will go and collect on your behalf. I can't get into all of the details about a good deal, bad deal, but at least you have an overview of what music publishing and songwriting is. Now, I just add one last thing. So all of that starts where? Usually in the studio when you're writing these songs. So if it's you and a co-writer, the most important place to start is making sure you have some type of understanding and agreement of how much they've written of the song and how much you've written. It's pretty easy if you just write the song yourself with your piano or guitar. You're the 100% owner of that song. But if you have some friends that come over and you all jam together, you all have to decide how you're going to split it up. You may decide, we're just going to split it equally. And I have a number of clients that that's the best way. If it's four of us in a room, it doesn't make a difference who did what. If you did the lyrics, if we did the music, if I just jammed on my guitar, we're going to split it 4 ways so we each keep 25%. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. One of the biggest rock bands in the world, U2, that's the only way that they do it. So whether Bono is actually in the room or not, he's always got an equal percentage on all the songs that U2 writes. On the other hand, especially in the hip hop community and sometimes in the R&B community, they tend to break the songs down where whoever contributes to music is entitled to 50% and whoever contributes to the lyrics is entitled to 50%. So you may have 4 or 5 different lyricists contributing to a song, and then they have to divide that 50%. The most important thing is always make sure your percentages add up to 100%.
Right.
So I know that was a little long, but that is such an important area, and that's where a lot of money can be made, even if you never receive the accolades as an artist. You can actually write some hit songs that may get recorded by a major artist. And even if you stay independent, whenever people stream and use your music, if you're the author or the songwriter, you're also entitled to income that way.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And really, I think it comes down to, from what you said, understanding based on your location, which publishing companies are there to accommodate you, and really just taking the time to educate yourself around how those companies operate. And then when you are in the studio, making sure that your piece of the pie equates to the others the proper way so that you get to that 100% and you feel good about whatever slice you're taking home, you know? So.
Yes.
Cool. Wanted to jump into something a little off the cuff here that has to do with a few of the things you were talking about, in terms of virality nowadays, you've got YouTube, you've got Vimeo and Reddit and all of Instagram, all of these places where people can literally just turn their phone on and start playing. And next thing you know, have millions of people watching your stream. It's happened. But I'm curious, as some artists begin their careers, and I'm one of them, I've covered several songs and posted them to YouTube, but I can't say they've gotten enough views for me to worry about anything one way or the other, but other artists have. And some even gain significant virality or acclaim for cover songs that they post to YouTube or have created in studio and posted on streaming sites. So for these artists, especially those that are independently kicking things off and starting to cover songs, what, if any, legal pitfalls should an independent artist be aware of before posting their latest cover online to avoid from it being flagged or removed, or to avoid anything in terms of like legal action?
Right. Well, that's excellent. Let me give you a couple of actual examples. I actually represent a young woman named Layton Greene, who is signed to QC, Quality Control Records, which
Oh
is
yeah,
label for the Migos, which a number of people, they have Little Baby, who's extremely successful.
love Lil Baby.
She's an
Yeah.
artist who was signed solely because the record label saw her cover recordings that she posted on YouTube. So I would absolutely encourage every artist out there, if you are looking to gain more attention and you've got that charisma and you put your own spin on it, there is nothing wrong with recording a cover version of a song that's already in existence. From a legal perspective, as long as you're not trying to sell the recording,
Mm-hmm.
then you're fine in terms of singing it and putting it up, because again, you're not going to get paid any monies because you didn't write the song. The original songwriters are going to receive their income. Now, to be extra careful, if you like, you can always contact the publishers and get what we call a mechanical license. However, again, for most YouTube promotions, you're going to be fine with doing that, and you don't have to worry about securing any licenses.
Gotcha. Just to spin off of that really quickly, because I'm curious, especially in hip hop, R&B, but we're starting to see it across the board. What about sampling? I've seen a lot of artists who take samples from specific songs, especially, classic songs that might have been dug up through crate digging or however they might have found these amazing samples to then build into a hip hop track or as an interlude between songs. And I see that a lot. I know mixtapes, and again, people that put out songs for free, that's not as big of a deal. But how do artists go about clearing these samples and making sure that they do it the right way so that they can use these songs in their own music?
Well, there is a true legal answer, and then there is the practical way business is conducted. Let me tell you, legally, you cannot use another person's work without securing some form of a license. And when I say use it, I mean, you can't incorporate another's records into your sound and look to sell or stream that music without obtaining a license. And there are actually sample clearance companies that you can just send them, say, hey, I did use a bit of this record here and I need to get it cleared. And you will pay them usually a few $100s, and they will go out and secure the rights. Now, you pay them the few $100s solely to do the work. Now, the original owners of that song will provide you with whatever their quote is of how much that they will charge. It may be $3,000 to use the sample, and they will more than likely want some publishing interest in your new song, depending upon how much you actually use. I can give you another practical example. I actually also manage an artist, and his name is Brando. Brando currently has the #1 record in Australia, and it's been #1 for 8 straight weeks, and it's called Look Into My Eyes. Now, Look Into My Eyes is an original song in terms of lyrics. However, he did incorporate some of the lyrics from a song that was put out in the 80s by a British band. And they ultimately said, we are going to take all of the publishing of your new song. So even though it's different music, even though he's got primarily different lyrics, the hook was the same hook from this original record. As a result, in order for him to put that record out commercially, we had to give them 100% of the publishing in his new song. So that can be a difficult term for some. Now, I mentioned that that's the legal way to do it. You go and you hire a sample clearance company and they get the rights and you clear it.
Yeah.
Most people, it just financially doesn't make sense to do that. So you put it out there and then you see what happens. The way that works is, if the song is successful, then that's when you're going to get a knock on the door or,
right.
or a phone call saying, hey, look, you used part of our work. Interestingly, that's exactly what happened with Lil Nas X and Old Town Road. The producer, who was in, I believe, the Netherlands, had sampled I believe it was 9 Inch Nails record with Trent Reznor. And
really?
Trent Reznor is actually one of the writers of Old Town Road because they sampled one of the records that the band wrote, and that's why they are also part of the songwriters on that song. And you can look that up in Deepr.
Wow. Yeah. See, it all connects there to where, I mean, that's a fun tidbit there. I wonder how Trent Reznor feels about being connected to it.
Here's what I tell you. Legally, you can't use anybody else's work. But if you're an independent artist, the best thing to do is go ahead and do it. If the record ever becomes successful, then you'll work out the details. Now, it will be immensely more expensive. The original writers had to give up a larger percentage rather than if they would have approached them at first. But nobody would have known that it would have been as successful as it is. And at the end of the day, everybody's okay because they truly made millions of dollars on that record.
Yeah, when it gets to that point, you know, I guess it comes down to the position that you're in and the confidence that you have, or the hype that you have in whatever song is coming out or album or attention. And then you can make that decision accordingly. You know, in some cases, it might make complete sense to do your due diligence ahead of time to secure that specific percentage, as opposed to just going for it, as in a situation like mine where nobody knows who I am outside of the Sofar Sounds ring. So if I were to put something out with a sample, I would go for it and, you know, take my chances, I guess.
And I just happened to notice, I looked into the chat room and I saw someone had a bit of a question that maybe what I stated was misconstrued, where I said the cover artists make no money on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's not what I was trying to convey if I said that. What I really want you to understand is, as if you didn't write the song, then you're not entitled to the music publishing royalties that are paid to whoever did write the song. So it is possible for you to generate income from those videos, as long as the original owners don't make a claim for that record. So I did want to clarify that. I was speaking only about you as the songwriter only make money when you write the songs you perform. If you perform a cover record, then those original songwriters are the ones who collect that money from YouTube.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. That's awesome. Thanks, Jen, for the question. And honestly, you know, I know I said we'd leave 15 minutes at the end for questions, but we've got a lot of people submitting questions, Jheryl. So I think we're just going to go ahead and jump right into some of the Q&A to get some of these questions that our attendees have been submitting. So just to start out, let's go ahead and start a little bit at the top, getting more generally into early artists that are exploring you know, new terrain without an attorney, or trying to navigate legal problems with an attorney. Giovanna, thank you so much for the question, asks, what are the most common legal problems or entanglements that you've seen happen to new artists by not having an attorney, for whatever reason, but in most cases financially? What are some of those pitfalls where if you don't have an attorney, you might be in some hot water?
Well, at the end of the day, it's usually entering into an agreement for a lot longer than you needed to, or being stuck in that contract with no opportunity to get out when the other, let's say it's a record label. I've often receive calls from clients saying, hey, I'm in this contract, I signed it, I didn't have a lawyer review it, but they haven't done anything. They haven't put my work out, or they haven't paid me. How do I get out of the contract? Well, at that point, you probably, if they haven't paid you, then they more than likely have breached the agreement. But it's possible that the record label or distributor doesn't have an obligation to pay you unless something else occurs, usually recoupment. So there are a lot of different things that fall under that contract that you think you could just sign, and ultimately you can be stuck in that agreement for a long time. Now, is there a way to get out? Yes, but typically that involves you having to file a lawsuit against them, and lawsuits are very expensive. So that's why it's important. Even though you may think, I can't afford the attorney up front, you really, if you get into a bad situation, it's going to cost you a lot more in the end. So it's trying to find some happy middle ground. Here's the one thing I would say. You know, I've been practicing law for 30 years, so my rates are going to be probably upper tier. You may find someone new who just got out of law school who is willing to work with you and charge far less. So try and seek out someone maybe who's new as an attorney. They may be able to work a deal out with you as opposed to going to the top tier attorneys.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I think, you know, just playing it cautiously there so that you aren't getting yourself into trouble is the right way to go. We got an interesting question here from Connor. So thanks, Connor, for the question. We're talking a little bit more about, you know, here in the 2020s now, there's new technology that is adapting to the way that we read, sign, and interpret contracts. Mainly, he addresses blockchain technology, which I believe makes it harder to hack, harder to change the information, might make it a bit more permanent, and how that applies to smart contracts. I personally am a bit ignorant to this topic, but wanted to just throw it out there to see, Darrell, if you have any experience with this and how this might affect the music industry and contracts like this moving forward with this new technology.
That's a great question, Connor. And here's the unique, interesting thing, Billy. I will share with this group semi-confidential information. We are working on technology using blockchain to create an ability for independent artists to actually negotiate contracts in the Deepr app. So for example, let's say, Billy, you've got a profile on Deepr, and this is not a function that we currently have active, but our technicians and our data scientists are working on building this. And I'm a record label, and I want to hire you, Billy, to come and play on one of my records. We will have a pre-populated form, very similar to when you click on many of the contracts online where you're agreeing to these terms. We're going to have it so that you can actually negotiate directly in the Deepr app using blockchain. So yes, it protects anyone on the outside from trying to influence, but it speeds the process. And we've got lawyers who have on both sides kind of pre-negotiated a number of the terms. So then you can just say, well, this is what my rate is. And because so many people have used it, then it's an approved form. And that's what we're developing. And I think that's where the future is going. So it will actually eliminate the need for some attorneys, although I will tell you, it will probably be a ways off, but that's one way that technology is helping the independent artists.
That's fascinating. I'd love to learn more about that as it develops, you know, and yeah, I'm sure as new technology develops like that, it's going to make it more seamless. And honestly, you know, I think some artists worry that this kind of technology can box them into a specific kind of contract that they have no control over, can't change, or can be manipulated on one end but not the other. But it seems like it's far the opposite, where they're actually using it to benefit the independent artist, which is such great news. Cool. So Jocelino, apologize if I say that wrong, but Jocelino has a question here around percentages. Again, going back to kind of the splits that we were talking about, getting your piece of the pie when you're in the studio there and deciding on who is getting distributed what after the process is complete and the music is released. She asks, They ask, is it fair for producers to ask for a percentage of both the songwriting and the master side of things, even when they haven't written the song? If producers are kind of trying to get their hands in both sides of the ball there, is that a fair thing for a producer to ask, or is it something that they should maybe be aware of other aspects of the whole situation?
Sure. Well, I'll try and be brief with the answer. First of all, it's a somewhat complicated answer because there are actually two copyrights that we're talking about. One is for writing the actual composition. And is it possible to give them a percentage? I think the answer is yes, if it's warranted. And every scenario is different. You may not be able to afford paying them a producer fee. So in exchange for paying them actual cash monetary value, you may say, hey, look, I wrote the song, I want you to produce it. I'll give you 10% of the songwriting or music publishing on that, and that's one way that I can do it. If you're paying your fees up front and you're paying the producer already, then I think there's less of an incentive for you to give them a percentage of the songwriting. Now, on the master side, I want everyone to understand what we're talking about when we talk about the copyright in the master. That's that actual physical recording, or even if it's the digital version of it, once you've recorded the song. Whoever owns the masters, and that's a huge topic, you know, when you usually do a deal with a major record label, they're going to own the masters. And why is that? Usually because they paid for it. So the best way to think about it is whoever is paying for that studio time to go in. And in this case, again, if perhaps you didn't pay for the producer to go into the studio, perhaps this producer already had his own studio and he's going to allow you to come in and record, you may want to offer him a piece of the ownership in the master. Just be very careful because ownership in the master has very, very serious connotations in terms of what can and can't be done with that song after you all agree to that. So, and that comes up to what we call administration rights. It is possible you can give him a percentage of ownership, but you still say, I'm going to administer everything to it. And that just simply means if a motion picture company wants to come and use that song in a movie, I'm the one who will give them the license and I work out a fee. Let's just say it's $5,000. And if you're getting 10% on the master side, all you're entitled to is me sending you a check for $500. So
For sure.
so
Gotcha.
it really depends upon each scenario in terms of whether you give them a percentage or not a percentage.
Gotcha. Cool. And to piggyback off of that, how about session musicians that you bring in on a track? Are they entitled to any royalties or anything, depending on the situation you have with publishers and you as the songwriter or lyricist or artist?
Another great question. And here's the beautiful thing. In the United States, and that's the only place I can talk about the session players, they are covered by, if they're a member of the union, the AFM, which is the American Federation of Musicians. And they set certain minimum rates that you need to be paid if you go and work in the studio on a song. The practical reality is if you're just starting out, you're probably not a member of the union. And if you're an independent artist, you're probably not going to be paying them anything except for maybe a pizza or something like that.
Pizza and beer, you know? Yeah.
Exactly, pizza and beer. But is there a way, if that song is super successful, you can also compensate them? Yes, and that can be, just as I mentioned, even if they actually didn't physically write or contribute a real musical influence on that song, you can, and they just played what you asked them to play, or they just embellished it with their talent of whatever the instrument is they have, you can offer them a piece of the music publishing and give them some songwriter's credit so that if that song does generate income or royalties, they can get a piece. But in general, the answer is no. Now, as I say that, I want to bring up one other important new development in the past 6-7 years in the United States. Artists have never been paid a performance royalty when their songs are performed on the radio. It's only the songwriters. However, with a digital exploitation, and especially, and this is solely for the United States, they've started a quasi-governmental agency called Sound Exchange. Sound
That's
Exchange
right.
actually pays the artist. and the performers on that song. So it is possible, if you are a musician on a record, you can sign up with Sound Exchange and be paid a royalty for the digital exploitation of that record. I don't have the time to go into the details, but I would encourage anybody, and whether you're in the United States or not, if your music is exploited or played in the United States, go to Sound Exchange and look it up on the internet and sign up and get an account.
And I have great news for everybody in attendance here. We actually have a webinar planned on September 10th coming up with Wade Metzler from Sound Exchange to go into all the details there. So part 2, following Darrell's fantastic webinar we've had so far, will be here on September 10th, in addition to a number of other really great webinars we've got coming up. So shameless plug there, Sound Exchange on September 10th. But to continue on here, we've got a bunch of great questions still coming in. Darrell, these answers that you've been giving are so fluid, so absolutely immaculate. Like, it's just been so great listening to you explain these things in really clear detail. So I don't want to miss out. I want to keep going. We asked and I also wanted to give credit to Rhonda for the question about session musicians. Thank you, Rhonda, for that question. Appreciate it. But we've got another question here from Sumanth. They ask, how are any royalties that need to be paid? Well, what royalties need to be paid if one were to cover a song live? You know, we talked about YouTube, but if you're playing a cover song on a live tour, for example, if the live song won't be recorded or a video won't be put up on social media, is there any royalty stuff that needs to go on there?
Absolutely, but you as the artist don't have to worry about it. Guess what? If I'm the venue owner, I pay an annual fee to one of those performing rights organizations, and I can only speak about in the United States, but I'm pretty familiar that it does work in most other territories. There's a body that will collect the royalties from the venue, and that covers everything. So if you're playing a song live, you don't have to worry about it. The songwriter will get their collection and their royalties directly from their PRO, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC in the United States. So that's the way that works.
Perfect. Nice. Then we've got things covered there. Just make sure you're playing in those legit venues, people. We had Brittany who asked a question around, I'm actually curious as this as well, because I'm not very familiar, and stop me if you aren't as well, but I would imagine you are, Darrell. She asks, do you think attaching IRS codes to the music that you're creating assists in reducing theft by major artists or producers? I know in the past, you know, there have been those situations. So what's your take on that?
No, that's not the way you protect a song. The way you protect the song is by copywriting it in the United States. And there are similar worldwide conventions for copyright. We have, the United States is part of what we call the Berne Convention. And there are in every country a way for you to register and protect your songs. So that's the way you stop someone from illegally using your songs. The IRS codes are solely to identify to retailers so that they know specifically when your song is streamed that money's to come back to you. So that's what the IRS code does.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And when you're thinking about platforms like SoundCloud, for example, which lets you post things for free, Sean here had a question asking, are there any disadvantages concerning publishing rights when posting songs initially to a platform like SoundCloud, which you can just post anything up for free? What are the disadvantages or advantages concerning the publishing there if your song is just out there on the internet all of a sudden?
Well, here's the cool thing specifically about SoundCloud. They are now going to start paying out royalties for streams and use of the music.
Oh, really?
Previously,
Okay.
they did not. And if there are any similar websites or services that you use that don't traditionally pay, well, that's the only downside. Yes, you don't generate any income from that. However, the upside is discovery. If you are discovered and you have a popular record on one of those platforms, then that can lead to the quote unquote record deal that you're looking for.
Gotcha. Cool. We're just flying through these, man. So I'm just going to keep going. This is great. We're talking about distribution royalties separately from other kinds of royalties now. Michael submitted a great question here asking, are distribution royalties a separate source from other performance and mechanical royalties, or are they all a piece of the same publishing / songwriter splits? how do these different royalties interact?
That's another great question. Yes. No, all of these royalties are usually independent streams of income. So mechanical royalties, again, speaks to the monies that are paid to the songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to enter into a distribution agreement to upload your music to iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, any of the streaming services, Deezer, whatever it is in your country, they will distribute, and then if you're the owner of the master, they will pay you a set amount of money, and those are typically called your streaming or your record royalties. Out of that, it depends on all the other people who are involved that you've made the deal with for those songs. So if you had a producer who gets a piece, the producer royalties come out of that. Those mechanical royalties technically also come out of that. However, most streaming services will allow the songwriters to be paid directly if they have a license with them. That's an advantage of being with a large music publisher, because they will, on your behalf, go and collect those funds on your behalf with the streaming service.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And I think this question from Mel actually blends into that. Forgive me, you may have actually already answered a portion of it, but she asks, and thank you for the question, Mel. What if someone made the music and you paid for the production of the music and gave it to someone to sing? So then who owns the mechanical rights in that situation? If someone makes, or if, yeah, someone makes the music and you pay for the production, and then somebody else has taken it and sings it and performs it, where do the mechanical rights fall in terms of that? Does it still just go directly to the person that wrote the song, or how does that work?
Correct. It makes no difference who the artist is. Here's one of the best examples. Whitney Houston was not a songwriter, but she was a great singer. The song "I Will Always Love You" is actually a cover record of Dolly Parton.
Oh, wow.
Dolly Parton wrote that record and gets millions of dollars from Whitney Houston singing that record. So in the scenario that was asked, if you gave the so-called production and the music over to someone else and you didn't write on that record, then you're not entitled to the mechanicals. Again, that's the publishing. That's solely for the songwriters. If you were the songwriter, however, you did some of the lyrics and someone else did the music and the production, and someone else sings it, you still are paid as the songwriter. That's why even if it's the same person, you can be the songwriter, you can be the producer and the artist, but it's better to think of each one of those roles separately.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So really putting them all into their own buckets and then navigating one by one rather than worrying about how it all fits together, breaking it into smaller chunks is the best way, right? All right, cool. This rapid fire round, you're killing it, Darrell. We got a couple more minutes, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it going, and then we'll leave a minute or two just to wrap things up and say goodbye to everybody. But again, thank you to everybody for the questions. We won't be able to get through them all today, but we'll try our best in the next 5 minutes here. I've got a great one from W. So W, thank you for your submission. They ask about, could you give us some advice as to what to look out for when a publishing company makes an offer to sign an artist? Is there an industry standard for how much a publishing company should own? I would love to know the brass tacks there on what to look for if you're really starting to consider working with a publishing company.
Yes, there actually is a kind of typical standard. Usually under a co-publishing relationship, the income in general, and there will be different categories depending upon the actual use. I talked about how music publishing creates these three real strong income streams. From mechanicals, that's the streaming of the records. Usually that's split 75-25 in the songwriter's favor. Then you have usually the PRO income. Now, the way the PRO works in the United States is they separate the interest by saying you have the writer's share and the publisher's share. Ultimately, if a song earns $100, 50% or $50 goes to the writer and is treated as the writer's share, $50 is treated as the publisher's share. Under a traditional co-publishing relationship, that publisher's $50 is then split 50-50 with the writer and the publisher. netting out $75 to the writer and $25 to the publisher. So again, that's a general split that's typical in a co-publishing situation. And usually in a synchronization license where someone is using your music in a song or a film, whatever the fee is, it's typically split 75-25. Although if the publisher goes and really uses their team, I have seen deals where they will collect as much as 40% in those situations.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I think we've got time for two more questions. Unfortunately, can't get to them all today, but we will be following up with information about how you can learn more about Deepr and reconnect with either myself, Darrell, or
Can
anybody
I
here.
just jump in? I see Haley say, what are some red flags to watch out for when working with the entertainment attorney?
I was going to ask that one. Yeah, hit
Okay,
us.
we're on the same page. So there's conflict of interest is the word. Conflict of interest. That means the attorney represents someone else who's involved in the same transaction so that their loyalties are split. That is a huge red flag. And unfortunately, there's a major lawsuit that was just filed last week by the Migos alleging that their attorney had a conflict of interest because he was actually representing the record label as well. Well,
Oh,
you can
wow.
imagine
Okay.
if you come to me and I say, well, yeah, I represent the record label, and yeah, we're going to negotiate your deal. Well, whose side am I going to make sure gets the better hand? That's an immediate red flag. There are a number of other ones, but that's a major red flag. The way to avoid that, ask them up front, do you have any conflicts with any of the people I'm doing business with? Most attorneys are going to be straightforward with you and always give you an honest answer, and you don't have to worry about that. But you can
Gotcha.
also find out more by asking for referrals, people who they've worked with, and pick up the phone and call those people and really find out, is it true? Is this a good lawyer? Have they done some, a good job? Especially
Yeah.
if you can't find any press about them online. So.
Right. It seems like, yeah, you really just have to do your due diligence, to do your research, to ask questions, and to get feedback from other people before you make any decisions that might affect the money going into your pocket or coming out of your pocket, right? So making sure that you do that research is so important. Darrell, this has been such an absolute joy to get to chat with you today. Thank you. Give your digital claps up for Darrell Thompson. Thank you again for joining us. This has just been really excellent, and I can't believe an hour's gone by already. Darrell, just wanted to ask really quickly, what else you've got going on? Anything to share before we wrap things up?
Well, the number one thing, of course, is I really want you guys to download and use the Deepr app. I think it will be very valuable if you are an independent creator. We have a way for you to upload your credits. Right now, we call it, and you'll see it on the app, the ICCP. We are a young company, and we're still developing new features. We're going to probably change that name because we found in some testing it's a little hard to understand what that is, but just know that we've got a lot of features. We're there to support independent creators, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure you get seen. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to do a selfless plug here for Brando. If you haven't heard Look Into My Eyes or any of his other work, he's got great songs. He's a dance artist, but yeah, I co-manage him, and I would love to maybe, Billy, connect with you and do this again so we can get to more of those questions, because I really enjoyed it. And I just want to thank everybody and ask that you enjoy your day.
Thanks so much, Darrell. Yeah, it really has been an absolute joy. I would love to reconnect with you and get a few more of these questions answered so that maybe we can distribute them to a blog post or something else that people can refer to. I think that would be extremely valuable. And we've got another in session for all of those still with us coming up next week, not next week, but the week after, 8/13. So Thursday, August 13th. It's going to be all about building your local fan base. So we'll be talking about how you really grow from a small town wonder to a big regional, big time artist. So we've got a really great panel in store for that. So please join us again and register online. But until then, Darrell, thank you again for your time. Download Deepr. Visit sofarsounds.com for more information. My name is Billy, and it's been a joy hosting you. This is In Session, and have a great day, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
See you later.